This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for November 6, 2025. This is season 15, episode number 17, and episode number 531 in the long-running podcast that is the Power Play Post Show. Hello, everyone. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. I think that was a sneeze, so bless you.
It was a cough, but I'll take it. My daughter says bless you every time I cough. So
I have people do that all the time with me. I think my coughs and my sneezes sound very, very similar. I don't know what the weather's like out where everybody else is, but I know it's raining really hard where Taylor is. And it's been it was a miserable, kind of cloudy, overcast kind of day. And then right around 4 o'clock, the heavens opened up and started raining.
I went to go pick up my daughter from the school bus and I looked at the weather really quick because I left the umbrella in the car. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I hope she gets off the bus and we get inside before it starts to rain. And then it didn't start raining until just really hard until a little while ago. But now there's thunder. It's getting heavy.
Oh, you got some thunder.
I'm surprised that you can't hear it through the phone.
You have thunder where you are.
It's loud here. It's like sideways rain. Like the winds are heavy. I'm surprised I still have power, to be honest.
Wow. All right. Well, what an interesting weekend. Obviously, we've already covered the Port Huron games where the Black Bears split in Port Huron. The only thing I got right about the weekend was that there was a split. Otherwise, it was reversed on which days I thought the split was going to happen. And then we kind of lead into, I think it was Monday that we find out that Cam Clark was traded to Topeka for financial considerations. And I know there's a lot of confusion with people about what financial considerations can be. There's a lot of things that they could be. It could be literally straight up cash. It could be just literally money. It could be vouchers for meals when a team is out, at the place where now we don't play Topeka, so I don't think they sent us vouchers to a restaurant in Topeka, Kansas, because we're not going to be there. The Black Bears are not going to go to Topeka. The Topeka is not coming here. It's not going to be hotel vouchers, that type of stuff. So more than likely, in this particular case, it's some sort of cash equivalent to what they think the player is worth. But financial considerations has happened for the Black Bears, I think, 5 or 6 times this year. Taylor. So they may have, got enough money from the rest of the league to pay the salaries for these guys for about 2 months with the amount of financial considerations and cash probably that has been exchanging hands between the other teams and the Black Bears ownership.
Yeah, I've always had people ask me why Binghamton always does financial considerations instead of trading for other players, and it's pretty simple. I mean, we're getting rid of guys because our roster's too full. We can't trade for somebody to, you can't get rid of somebody and bring somebody in. Our roster would still be the same.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is that the Black Bears don't usually take on players from other teams in this league. They'll take players from the SPHL, ECHL. They'll bring in new players, but generally they don't take on players. If you look at Brandt's regime here in Binghamton, you usually don't see players from other teams joining the teams. The players that are still here now that were here before, like Gavin Yates, who played with Watertown, there was a relationship between him and obviously Andreas Johansson. It's the reason why he's here. And then, of course, Brent Sherwood was completely on board with Gavin Yates. But otherwise, the trades that he does not bring somebody from another team. He's never done it before.
Yeah, but all the other teams sure are happy to pick up our guys when we release them. That's for sure.
Well, either release or, enjoy the trade, right? They're like, oh, yeah, this guy comes in. Luke Dobles, I've seen pictures of him. Justin Samaro has done good for the Athens Rock Lobsters. Brody Thornton did really good after he got picked up in the expansion draft. So there have been some players that have gone on to the other teams and whatnot. But we'll talk a little bit more about Cam Clark in just a few minutes. The Power Play Post Show is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on your favorite app, and don't forget to subscribe. Join the conversation on Facebook. Search for the Power Play Post Show and become part of our community. Looking for everything Binghamton Hockey? Visit binghamtonhockey.net, your go-to source for stats, history, and all things Binghamton Hockey. And no guest this week here on the show, which means no 6 more questions on Sunday. It'll be just Taylor and I, both of these shows, breaking down what's coming up and breaking down what happens on Sunday. But Taylor, let's get more into the Cam Clark situation.
So to get to the 20+1 roster limits, the Black Bears trade Cameron Clark to the Topeka Scarecrows for financial considerations. As we've been chronicling on the Power Play Post Show for the last few weeks, moves have been necessary to get the roster down to meet league minimums, which after November 1st is 20+1. In his 61 games played for the Black Bears, Cam has 25 goals and 25 assists for 50 points in the regular season. He has 2 goals and 2 assists in 10 playoffs and will always be a 2 Commissioner Cups champion. This is not the last roster move that will need to happen, as the Black Bears have 2 players on the IR list, Tyson Kirkby and Zach Sirota. When either of these 2 players come off the list, either someone needs to go on the IR, get released, or moved. Cam was on the Power Play Post Show as we chronicled his journey into the pro ranks, as he spoke to Bobby about being in school full-time and working to become a pro hockey player.
Yeah, so I always had a good relationship with Cam. I did talk to him shortly after finding out that he was, traded. Wished him well. He was disappointed. He was very disappointed that he was traded, but I think he understood. I think there is. It's interesting too, because first of all, did you see that Zach Sirota is now officially changing his number to 89? So that's happening this upcoming week, or whenever he comes back. I'm actually not sure when he's coming off the IR, but when he does, he is going to the number 89. So he's switching from 7 to 89. That is official. They posted that on socials today.
Yeah, I remember meeting his dad for the first time. He had said something about he was trying to change numbers, and he was changing it to 89. And I don't know if you were up there when he was talking about it, but the question was asked why he was changing it to 89, and he said it's because it makes him look bigger.
I love that. That's to me, it's just listen, if you haven't met Les Sirota, you really have to, because he is a character. He's just a character, a very interesting guy. And I think he made us laugh a couple times up there when he came up and said hello and introduced himself. So Les, if you're listening, it was definitely a pleasure to meet you. I hope to see you in Binghamton here again soon.
Yeah, if you have not met him, you truly are missing out. He's a fun guy.
All right, so let's have a little bit of a discussion about newer players staying and players from previous years being traded or released, like Eggy or Cam Clark. How should the fans react to this? Taylor, let me pose that question to you right now.
I think it depends on your feelings or relationship to the player. I know for a lot of fans, you typically have 1 or 2 guys that that's your go-to, that's who you're cheering for. Some people, you like everybody on the team, and that's awesome. But for some people, like the family that buys the Tyson jersey, every jersey auction, there's usually just that one player that's what you want. I know that a lot of times they take it hard when players either move on or they retire or whatever happens. And I think it's perfectly fine to be upset about a player leaving. But I also think there are certain lines, like at the end of the day, this is a professional thing. They are hockey players. They understand, what has to go into this. They understand what needs to be done. I haven't seen like anything unprofessional. Some of the banter between the fans gets a little bit much sometimes. Like if somebody says that they're disappointed and somebody else comes in and says, something else, and it can get a little heated.
Can spiral out of control a little bit, right?
Yeah, it can, and sometimes it does. Like, because I said that earlier in the week that I had made a post about Cam being traded.
Mm-hmm.
In the fan page, and then I immediately regretted making that post.
Why?
Because
why?
you have your.
Tell me why. What do you
have your?
Well, what did you say? What did you say first, and that ultimately you were gonna maybe regret later?
I just stated that if you haven't already seen, but it shouldn't come as a surprise that Cam Clark had been traded.
Right.
And I said that it shouldn't come as a surprise, not because it was Cam Clark, but just because we've talked about November 1st. That's when you have to have your roster limit. We knew what the roster limit was. We've had X amount of guys over it. We're still technically over it once the IR people come off IR, unless other people go on.
Right.
So it's one of those things where you knew something was going to happen, whether you knew who or you didn't. You knew it was going to happen with somebody. And the reason that I ended up regretting it is because it ended up getting kind of heated in the comments. And then on top of that, it's just you have other people that are like, oh, well, don't bash the team. And that's not what people are doing when they show they're displeased in somebody being released.
Right. Because
people are going to be upset about somebody being released because they've created a relationship with them. And now, they've gone on to a city and to a team that we don't get to play. So they're not going to see them for the rest of the season. And people are allowed to be upset about that.
Yeah. And I have no problem with super fans in any sport. I have no problems with those kind of people who blindly just follow and kind of blindly just cheer, right? But some fans, like I posed the question, how should fans react? Well, the fans should react however they want to, right? Because like you said, they build these relationships and these connections sometimes with some of the players that are very difficult to find out that, oh, that person's no longer going to be in Binghamton. This person is going to be moving on. And it's not like they are moving on to like the ECHL or going to the SPHL for maybe a different challenge. No, they were either released or traded by the team or by Brant Sherwood. And they can react however they want. Obviously you don't want to make it personal. You don't want to be, stupid in that sense, but they should be able to react however they want. And I guess the other thing that I pose the question is, should fans be able to be disappointed and be able to express that disappointment? And I think you agree with yes, as long as this stays as civil as possible, correct?
Yeah, I think you're allowed to be disappointed for any reason. I mean, you could be disappointed that they lost. You could be disappointed about how the game was played, because that's happened a couple of times. I mean, you and I were disappointed with the game, but not because they lost, just because of how the game was played. You're allowed to be disappointed in certain aspects. It's just you have to be, I mean, I want to say professional, but that's just because, what you and I do is a professional thing. But you want to be courteous about other people.
Or civil, like I said, civil.
Right.
Yeah. But here's the other thing that really made me think about us talking about this and having this conversation so fans could hear this. I don't like it when someone says you can't or you shouldn't talk negatively about the team in any regard. And I don't think that any fan, a super fan, should tell any fan to cheer and not be able to jeer decisions that are made. Because if you buy a ticket and you go to a game, Taylor, you buy a ticket and you go to the upcoming game in Indiana, you have three things that I believe you have the right to do: cheer, boo, or sit on your hands and do nothing at all. Right? Cheering is clapping and standing up and, fist pumping when you guys score a goal. Booing is, I might want to boo Reggie Millette because he, did whatever he did in the past. Or you might want to boo, a guy laying a dirty hit on one of our players. Or you could just sit on your hands and do nothing at all. I believe fans have that right to do that. They have the right to express themselves, especially in the stands, because they buy a ticket, okay? They probably don't have the right to swear and curse or get personal with, whoever because they don't like something, right? But also in the same regards, even in social media, I believe in freedom of speech, all the way up to the crazy moments where, you can say something that may be a little bit of offensive, but that's part of where we live, and we have that right. I don't like it because it's very authoritarian for someone to say that a fan is not allowed to say something that they feel, right? And I saw that, unfortunately, this week. I didn't pay a lot of attention, because I was busy doing things here at my house while I was off from work. But I did see some things that I just didn't like. I don't like it when someone says, don't talk that way because it's negative. That bothers me some.
Yeah, and I understand that. I mean, that to me, it's just kind of like the society that we live in these days is that you can't say anything if it disagrees with what I believe. Mm-hmm. And it just, the whole freedom of speech thing is just completely out the window. People can't have different views
or opinions
and still be able to have civil conversations and be able to have a conversation back and forth. It's never just a conversation. It's always like one side's always got to get mad about something. And it's just, that's why I immediately regretted posting it. And I was like, I was almost to the point of deleting it. And then I just let it go, and it settled down and it just stopped. But
yeah,
because I get that way too, and especially when it's on my posts, I don't ever lash out at anybody when they do stuff like that. I try to explain things as easily and civilly as possible.
Yes.
When people are upset, I'm like, there's always two sides to the story.
Yes.
You can be upset about it, but maybe he wanted to leave, or maybe him and Brant had a long talk, or maybe there's X, Y, and Z that happened. And I'm like, unfortunately, we just don't get to see those sides. So,
but it's still okay. But it's still okay, Taylor, I think, for someone to express that they're unhappy. And yes, someone said, I don't know what Brant Sherwood is thinking by releasing him and Eggy. Okay, you can say that. It's okay. It's literally okay to say that. It really is. You're not going to hurt Brant Sherwood's feelings. He's a 2-time Commissioner's Cup head coach champion, right? But you should be allowed to express yourself in that way, because the person who said it didn't make it personal with Brant, didn't say that Brant was an idiot or any of the other things. No, the person just said they didn't understand what Brant was doing with this team. And that's okay. That's why you listen to the Power Play Post Show. We'll tell you. Cam Clark, at this point, has not done on this team this year in 8 games that Jacob Shankar and Tim Kim have. I'm not picking on Cam Clark. I like Cam Clark. But when you look at the game tape and you look at the numbers that those two guys have put up, Cam Clark didn't put those numbers up. He didn't put up that kind of play. Now, do I think Cam Clark worked hard? 100%. But this isn't about a guy being on the team for 63 games in the past, or 74 games, whatever it was. This is about what's happening this year, correct? And I think Brant Sherwood has earned some cachet that we should give him some latitude in how he handles the roster. So yes, you're allowed to be upset. You can express it all you want, but I am not going to talk trash about Brant Sherwood in this move, or even the Eggy move, just because he does have that cachet. I give him some latitude when it comes to this roster, and it's okay. But it's okay for people as well to express themselves, and I'm okay with that.
Well, I mean, that, and the first year that Brant was in here, everyone was saying to fire him. So yep. I truly don't think you can hurt his feelings at this point.
No,
I mean, he came in and did what he did, and it's gotten us to where we are today. So
yeah, and we've won 2 championships, and we're off to a 7-1 start. And really, the loss that we had was because we allowed, and I say we, I mean the Black Bears players allowed themselves to kind of get sucked into what Port Huron was doing. But at the same time, I think they didn't have really much of a choice, because I think Port Huron was just going to continue to be aggressive with their sticks and their bodies. And like I said in the piece, you either roll over or die, or you fight back. And the Black Bears did. It didn't work for them, but that was a 2-1 game all the way until the last 2 minutes. So,
yeah, I mean, I definitely wish it didn't have to go that way with Port Huron, but I do agree with you in thinking that it was bound to happen and that they kind of had to. I think they had to play their style of game. Otherwise, they probably would have come out with more injuries than they did.
Yeah, I agree. So, Taylor, I'm going to recommend, if you haven't watched the Tully's Good Time show with Brooks from Tuesday, you should definitely check it out, because John Quinville was on the show. And one of the things that I noticed, which I didn't know about, nobody had informed me that this happened, John Quinville's title has changed. Let's talk about that now.
So John Quinville title change from assistant coach to associate coach, head of player development. What does this mean? What is the difference between an assistant and associate? There is a difference between associate coach, which is more of a senior role than assistant coach, ranking between an assistant and a head coach. An associate coach is considered the second in command with greater responsibilities and authority, such as stepping in if the head coach is absent. An assistant coach, while crucial, typically has more specialized role, focusing on specific areas like special teams or certain player groups like either defense or offense. The Black Bears do have 2 assistant coaches, Tyson Kirkby, who we all know, player/assistant, and Mason Esworthy, who does videos.
So I have to say that I saw this and I was like, whoa, this is a little bit of a change. And I think Brooks, when he introduced him, said that he was now the associate head coach. And I thought that was interesting. But when you go on to the Black Bears page, you can see that it's associate coach. So, and head of player development. I think it's a title change just to make the position a little bit more attractive, so to speak. I think John Quinville was going to probably be doing the things that he's doing. I don't think the duties have necessarily changed. I just think that they're giving him a little bit more of a fancier title. Probably is going to look good on his resume down the road. One of the things that Quinville said in the piece when he was talking to Brooks, and I find this very, very interesting, because this is the NHL mentality that he's bringing to the Black Bears. One of the concepts in hockey that he talks about that NHL teams do so very good, at least the ones that win championships like the Florida Panthers, is 5 in a box. So 5 in a box is basically, or 5 in the picture. So when you have your cameraman following the game, following the puck, if you can see all 5 of your players on the ice in the picture, that means you're doing things the right way. And so one of the things you have to consider with that is, if you're watching the game online or on television and the puck is down in the corner behind your goaltender or even their goaltender, do you see all 5 of your guys on the screen at the same time? And do you see that the majority of the time? It means they're in the positioning that they're supposed to be in, or at least relatively close to where they're supposed to be. It is a mentality in the NHL. Guys play in the NHL because they execute that perfectly, or as close to perfectly as you can. John Quinville is bringing those things that he learned in the NHL to a single-A hockey team. To me, that's pretty impressive.
Well, now I'm just going to pay attention to every time I watch the game at home, if they're, all 5 players are in the camera shot.
Yeah, well, of course, it also helps that the cameraman is doing his job correctly. I know. But in Binghamton, we do a pretty good job about that. Okay, so if you're home or you go home after the game and you go and you watch the video, those are the types of things that you should be looking for. And I think that was a very interesting point from Quinville. But again, his pedigree brings that out. And I think that was very, very interesting. It's a great interview. You should go listen to it. Quenneville can definitely talk. I can't wait to get him here on the Power Play Post Show and talk to him about being here. I wanted to give him at least a month or so to get acclimated. Not that he's not acclimated to Binghamton because he lives here with his wife. She's from here. But it's one of those things where I want to give him acclimation to being a coach, right? And coaching these guys. And let's be honest. I mean, they're 7-1, so it's already starting off good for them.
Yeah. Do you think you'd have a longer conversation with him than you did? Which one was it? Was it Austin Thompson that you had? You were talking to for a few hours, or no? It was Ramekers.
No, it was Ramekers. I don't. Well, first of all, Ramekers is not here with his family, so I think if I had a conversation with Quenneville, more than likely I would try to tailor it to under an hour and get as much of it as I can on audio for people, just because I know he'd be there with his wife, and I believe he has 2 young children, if I'm remembering that correctly. So I wouldn't want to keep them away. But Ramekers, he's just sitting at Whitney Point. I could talk to him all day long. That's not a big deal.
That was always very shocking to me because he just seems like such a quiet guy.
No, absolutely. All right. So Taylor, let's get into this upcoming weekend. Who are we playing against?
Black Bears play 2 games this weekend versus the Indiana Sentinels. This marks the return of Everett Thompson, who played for Binghamton and is now the head coach of the Sentinels. These are the first 2 games ever between Binghamton and Indiana, and they will meet again in Binghamton on February 6th and 7th. Then Binghamton will travel to Columbus, Indiana on March 20th and 21st near the end of the regular season. The Sentinels have had a rough start to the season. Winless so far with 7 losses and 1 overtime loss. They have 1 point and are in 7th place in the Empire Division. The Binghamton Black Bears are 7-1-0 with 20 points and sit first in the Empire Division.
So obviously it's the Indiana Sentinels coming in. I think the most notable name, of course, would be Everett Thompson. I did have him on the show when he was the head coach of the Baton Rouge Zydeco. We talked about his time in Baton Rouge and Binghamton. He's also a Davenport University hockey player. And, of course, Davenport is the college home of Austin Thompson as well. Now, there's no relation between Everett and Austin, but they both did go to Davenport, which is very interesting. All right, last weekend, the Black Bears split 2 games with Port Huron Prowlers out in Michigan. On Friday, Binghamton defeated the Prowlers 5-3, with Austin Thompson scoring a hat trick in the game. On Saturday, the Prowlers won the game 4-1, though the last 2 goals were empty netters in the last 2 minutes. Last weekend, the Sentinels lost both games on Friday and Saturday to Topeka Scarecrows. Now, I want to let everyone know it was the first weekend that Indiana was truly competitive in their games. And I do believe, and a lot of people believe within the league, that's because Everett Thompson has brought in some structure and brought in some of his own guys, own players that will play the style of hockey that he wants. On Friday, the Sentinels lost 4-2 in Kansas on Halloween night in a closer game. But then on Saturday, in another close game that did go to overtime, the Sentinels lost 4-3, but earned the Sentinels their first point in the standings. Now, to note, these were the first 2 games coached by Everett Thompson and were considered the first 2 games the Sentinels looked competitive. Again, I want to make that perfectly clear. The Black Bears are led by Ivan Bondarenko, which if you didn't know, because he's not flashy at all, even though Taylor's talked about him, probably about 6 out of the 8 impact players now. It's about that, right?
I think it's only like 4.
Still 4? Okay. So only 50%. That's a pretty good ratio for him right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard. I mean, I could have written about him probably almost every single game. It's very hard for me to narrow it down.
Yeah.
And that's why I usually come to you, because I'm like, I have, players X, Y, and Z, but I'm also thinking about players A, B, and C. And you're like, well.
Yeah. And what did I say on Friday night? I was like, well, you're definitely talking about Tumay, who I thought had a great game, and Austin Thompson, right? And then you had to pick somebody else after that. I'm going to put you on the spot right here. You don't have to say the name, but one of the Impact players liked your post this weekend.
Yes, I was very shocked by that. I'm used to parents liking it, like Steve McAnanama usually always likes stuff that we post, and Austin Thompson's family usually posts when I talk about him as an Impact player. But I think this is the first time I've ever had a player like the Impact players, and he was one of the Impact players, and I was very shocked by it.
Yeah,
I don't really know how I feel about it, because I almost feel weird because they're reading something that I wrote about them, and it makes me feel weird in a sense. Like, I don't know if I should be nervous. I don't know if it made me more nervous to know that the player actually read what I wrote. But yeah, it was very interesting. I don't know if I screenshotted it and sent it to you, or if I just told you about it, but I definitely took a screenshot of it and sent it to a couple people.
Yeah. Well, listen, you have to understand there are a handful of the guys who are actively playing on the team right now that are in the Facebook group, right? And that's obviously where we post the Impact players. So if you're listening to this and you're not part of the Facebook group, this is exactly why you should be, because there are features that we do, especially on game days and the day after games, that you get to read that you're not going to get to read anywhere else. There's a couple things that I do post that you can is shareable on PPPShow Bob's page, but there are stuff that is exclusive just to the Power Play Post Show Facebook group, including the Impact players. And it was really nice that one of the players read it, liked it, and we'll just leave it at that. But I wanted to bring that up because I know you were excited about it. I remember the first time that a player liked one of my things that I wrote, or said something to me privately about something that I wrote, and it's a good feeling. Don't be nervous about it. It's good. You do a very good job. You're very detail oriented, coming up with things from the games of the reason why you selected them as, or I selected them as the Impact players. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, the only time that I ever have a hard time with it, aside from, narrowing it down to 3 people, is if you tell me that I should write about somebody that I hadn't even paid attention to.
Oh,
so then I usually
go back.
What happens with me is I usually, as I'm watching the game, I write very quick notes.
Yeah.
So I write the time, the player, and a brief description of what happened. So if I could be at 10:24 in the first period, CJ Stubbs, power play, and that's all that I write. So then later on, if I forget what happened, I just go to that time in the game, I watch what happened, and then I can refocus. And so usually the player that you pick aligns with some of that stuff, so I can always go through and just, nitpick certain things. And that's only happened once or twice, where you picked a player that I wasn't even considering just because I had, thought about other people. And that's the hardest part about this whole thing, is that there are so many talented players on this team that it's hard to pick game after game who I should write about.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I could probably write about the majority of the guys that have played that game.
Right.
Because there are so many people that are making good moves, even Laughlin and DeRazio on the D team. They've been making some great moves, and I could have written about them, I think, on the Saturday game or maybe the Friday game. I don't remember which one. But I remember talking to Jeremy about it, and I was like, they're impressing me. I'm like, they're not getting points for it, but they're on, they're defensive men. I wasn't expecting them to have points, but they were making good plays and they were working really well together.
Yeah, and their positioning as well is good. It's they're listening to Jesse Anderson. They're listening to Dan Weber and Dan Stone. They're probably asking the right questions. They're probably getting advice from John Quinville, because I know he's the head of player development now. So he's probably working with these guys, and they're listening, because here's the thing about defensemen. If we don't talk about them, then they're probably doing a good job. And that's something that people have said about defensemen for years in hockey, right? Yeah, sure. If a defenseman goes out there and scores 2 goals like a Dakota Bond, you're going to talk about that in a positive way. But a lot of times defensemen are talked about oh, did you see how he got around the defenseman and then boom, scored a goal, and then so the defenseman's name is named, but that's because it was in a negative way. So if you don't talk about defensemen sometimes, and I don't mean you and the impact players, I just mean in just general, then it generally means that they're doing a good job. But, me watching DeRazio and Laughlin and Chichu on the ice, it's like these guys are positioning themselves properly. And half the battle, maybe even 60% of the battle for defensemen is being in the right place on the ice. And that's hard to do because in the world today where defensemen are always trying to score goals or just be active in the offense, they sometimes lose their position on the ice and they're not in the right place at the right time when the team needs them to because of an attacking player coming in. So I think the fact that you realize that DeRazio and Laughlin are somebody that you could have written about means that they're probably doing a pretty good job, even if they're not scoring goals.
Yeah, I definitely think that role is overlooked by fans largely, because it's easy to watch, Shankar and Tim Kim out there doing their thing and, it's noticeable. It's, people are going to talk about it and they're, I've seen people talking that, well, they can't wait to bid on a jersey for them kind of thing, that's coming up this Saturday. So I'm excited to see how that goes, but don't overlook the guys that are playing on D because they are making some great moves out there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's part of the reason why I think the Black Bears have made the moves that they've made because I think they've brought in high quality players. The better the Black Bears recruit, the harder it is for previous players to stick around. And the reason why is because you're going to have new, young, fresh faces that have high quality skill to say, hey, look what they're doing in Binghamton. I want to go there. And it just might outshine people who've already been there. And that's just the way it is. So kind of circling back to what we talked about before,
Yeah, definitely. We even talking before camp started, we knew it was going to be pretty cutthroat with the amount of guys that were coming in. And, you have a limited number of spots and you have to fight for your spot. And that's definitely what they've been doing these 8 games.
I agree. All right. So the Black Bears are led by Ivan Bondarenko. I already mentioned him. CJ Stubbs, 8 games played, 2 goals and 11 assists. Taylor, I want to ask you this question. Are you surprised that the 2 top point getters on our team, 14 and 13 points, CJ Stubbs and Ivan Bondarenko, have the least, I don't want to say the least amount of goals because that's not accurate, but they have so many more assists. These guys are playmakers and dishing the puck off more, and they're so involved in the scoring opportunities for the Black Bears.
Yeah, I'm not surprised one bit by that, especially for Bondarenko. That's part of the reason that I've been able to write about him so many times is the way that his line with CJ Stubbs and Jansen on it, the way that they can move the puck amongst themselves, and even on the special teams, the way that they move the puck among themselves, it does not surprise me at all that him and Stubbs, man, if he connected on half of his goals instead of hitting the post or going a little too high, he would have the most goals in probably the league. I'm telling you.
And you're not picking on him. It's just a fact.
Not picking on him at all. It's just he takes so many shots on goals, and I feel so bad for him sometimes.
Right.
Because like there are games where he's got 10 plus shots on goal, and you're just like, oh man, like you were this close, and it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure he's feeling it, but I mean, he's got 11 assists, and that's something. So
that's true. All right. Austin Thompson, in 7 games played, has 8 goals and 3 assists for 11 points. I think he's a benefactor of Stubbs and Bondarenko dishing off the puck at times. Stubbs does have 2 power play goals and 2 game-winning goals. Thompson has 2 power play goals and 1 game-winning goal. Connor McAnanama, in 5 games played, 4-1 with a 2.58 goals against average and an 882 save percentage. And Taylor and I were talking, and we truly do believe that the loss in Port Huron was Connor McAnanama's best game. of the season.
Which is so weird to say for a goalie. You never want to say that their best game is one that they lost, but
it really was.
I do believe that. Port Huron is one of those teams that they can challenge us, and we haven't really seen that yet this year.
Mm-hmm.
Watertown has its challenges. I think Watertown's okay. They're decent. And I think they can push us a little bit, but not like Port Huron does. And Danbury, I don't know what's going on with them, but they do not have it, at least not yet so far.
Yeah, Danbury's Danbury's going to have a bad season, I think. Maybe they'll turn it around. I don't know. Johnny Ruiz is out. You probably saw that. So he is injured. I believe has a concussion from a hit that he took, a high hit. So he's probably going to be out for a while. But you're right. Port Huron's the only one that's really given us a challenge so far. We do have Athens in 2 weeks after the Indiana Sentinels series. So that will be a challenge because Athens is pretty good. So the Black Bears have to get ready for the Athens series. But before then, the Sentinels are led by Bohdan Zinchenko, who I think played with Danbury last year, 5 games played, 3 goals, 2 assists for 5 points. He has 1 power play goal and 1 shorthanded goal, something the Black Bears do not have yet in 8 games. They do not have a shorthanded goal. Last year, they did so good shorthanded. J.D. Anderson in 7 games played for the Sentinels has 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points and 1 shorthanded goal as well. So they're obviously a juggernaut when they're down a man. Vladislav Pavlov, 7 games played, 1 goal, 3 assists for 4 points. And they really don't have a goaltender that's stuck around all that much. Chris Cure is 0-1-1. So he's got 1 loss, 1 overtime loss from this past weekend with a 3.87 goals against average and an 8.87 save percentage. Now, looking at those numbers, the 4 guys that I highlighted there for the Sentinels, it just doesn't seem like they're going to match up potentially offensively.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. It's interesting that they've got shorthanded goals, though. I mean, for a team that hasn't won, getting shorthanded goals is not an easy feat usually. So that's kind of a surprising thing to me.
Yeah, me too. When I saw it, I was surprised as well. That's why I wanted to make sure that it was noted there. So, we know this going in. On the special teams, Binghamton's power play is ranked 6th in the league right at the moment, 11 power play goals at a 20% conversion rate. Penalty kill ranked 6th, 6 power play goals against them at an 85% rate. The penalty kill has been really good. In the game on Saturday, I think was the first game without a power play goal. So they went 7 games with a power play goal in each one of their games. But then on Saturday, that was broken by the Prowlers defense and the style of play they play. The Indianapolis, I almost called them the Indianapolis Colts. Indiana, their power play is ranked 11th. They've only scored 6 power play goals at 11% rate. And their penalty kill is ranked 14th, dead last in the league. They've given up 16 power play goals against and only have been killing penalties 72% of the time. Taylor, I think that might be a factor this upcoming weekend. We'll see. I know that they were better last weekend, but if they commit any penalties at all, it's going to put the Black Bears in a good place to score.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see the penalties play out this week compared to last weekend because we went over 100 this past weekend, so we're hopefully going to dial it back in. And
yeah, no, I totally agree. I hope they do. All right. So I think that's pretty much it for this show. We'll be back on Sunday. We'll break down these games with the Indiana Sentinels. I'm not sure what to expect. I think we're going to see a team, this upcoming weekend that wasn't the team that people saw the first few weeks in Columbus, Indiana, when they played, because they played their first 6 games at home, and they didn't see a really good team. I mean, a couple of the games they lost 10-0 and like 9-3. So I think we're going to see a different team just because of Everett Thompson and the structure that he's put in there and some of the players that he's brought in. They'll be better, but I just, I still think it's going to be difficult for them to beat the Black Bears.
I do agree with that. I think that largely for the fan base, and I could just be basing this off of Jeremy, because he thinks that, they're going to come in and we're going to walk all over them. I don't think that. Mm-hmm. I do think it'll be a win, but I don't see it being just a washout. And that's mostly because, as we've mentioned, Everett Thompson coming in, he took this team from getting washed out to, they fought and took a game into overtime. And that's an impressive feat just because of what that team's gone through and all the stuff that's been happening to that team. And he's still got guys that are willing to work and willing to go out there and play.
And also, he's also gotten the players to think not about the distractions, but the play on the ice. And that's important. It's really, really important because that's very hard to do in some cases. And I know it was a struggle for the HC Venom last year when all the stuff was changing for them, going from one owner to a new owner, and then realistically going from one coach to MJ Merkel, who coached them. So very, very interesting stuff. We will break it all down on Sunday, talking about how the team does, how they react. And Taylor, we'll leave it with this. The thing that I said, I think is very, very important for people to kind of think about a little bit. It's not about the loss. It's about how you react to the loss in your next game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if they just took that loss in Port Huron and said that's their style of play. That's not what we do. And they come back and they get right back to Binghamton hockey, or
yeah.
If they kind of take that loss as a hit and it kind of rattles them a little bit. I truly hope that's not the case, but you never know. It can happen, and we've seen it happen before.
And I do expect Gavin needs to be back. I really do. I expect him to be back and on the ice. I expect we'll see Connor McAnanama or Wyatt or maybe even Tomei in one of the games as well. You can't play all three, but you can at least play two of them. Or maybe Connor gets both games. I'm not really sure. We'll see. It'll be interesting to find out. All right. The Power Play Post Show is available on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on your favorite app. And don't forget to subscribe. Join the conversation on Facebook. Search Power Play Post Show. Be part of our community and read the impact players. I mean, it's pretty simple. The players are doing it. So should you. Looking for everything Binghamton Hockey? Visit binghamtonhockey.net. Did you like how I plugged that for you?
Yeah. It made me laugh.
Well, it's true, though. Hey, the players are listening. The players are reading the impact players, and so should you. All right. Thank you to Rob Lapoulis, our MC, John Petitucci, our musical director. I am Bob Howard. She is
Taylor Welch.
And we'll talk to you next time right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.